Hey everyone, welcome back to Alchemy with Zero Phase. This is Eric, and in this video we will be doing a introduction and walkthrough for those interested in getting started with Stable Diffusion, what my recommendations are, tips and tricks, and some basic usage of Stable Diffusion, and more specifically we'll be using the Stable Diffusion WebUI Forge edition to get you started and get you producing some good images. So if you're just getting started off in using Stable Diffusion to generate images, you know that there's probably going to be several different packages that will allow you to generate images. There are some ranging from super easy like Focus all the way up to super complex like Comfy UI. I personally started off with Automatic 1111. I loved it, got used to the interface, learned how it worked. And this is going to be the same for any interface. When you get started, kind of pick one, get used to it, learn how to use it, and just dive into it. One of the reasons I switched to the WebUI Forge edition, which is essentially I don't know if I should call it a branch. I'm not sure if it's a branch. What I do know is that it is set up to be exactly like Automatic 1111. The person who developed the Forge edition went through and optimized the crap out of it. I mean, there were a lot of inefficiencies with the Automatic 1111 interface that when rendering images made it a lot slower, switching models was slower, that kind of thing. And so this person went through and streamlined the hell out of this interface. It on average generates images twice as fast as Automatic 1111, has better, it's more efficient at switching models, and overall, just it works better like with lightning models and generating things a lot quicker. Something to take note is those of you who have used Automatic 1111 or may still be using it, the Forge edition of WebUI is, as far as I can tell, fully backwards compatible with all extensions that have been produced for Automatic 1111. I made the switch a while ago, and all the extensions that I used came over just fine, meaning I was able to get them installed, get them configured, and they work great. So really the key features and benefits of using the Forge edition is going to be speed. And we all know that with generating images, especially on your local system, speed is critical. Being able to generate an image as fast as possible while still getting the best quality possible is highly important. That's why I choose to go with the WebUI Forge edition. Now, if you want to try Comfy UI, I've been told, and a lot of the people on my Discord love using it because it's very customizable, allows you to do a lot of really custom stuff that maybe you can't do in the WebUI interface, and that's fine. I love seeing the images they throw across. They're very impressive. Automatic 1111, or I should say Forge, does what I need it to do and allows me to generate the images that I want. Okay, before we dive into the interface, we're going to back up a little bit and talk about install. So there's a couple different ways that you can install Forge. You can do the manual way. You go to their GitHub page and they have a manual way using command line arguments, doing the installs of Python and all the various things. It's a very manual way of doing it. And I've done that before. It's fine. It gets a little technical. If you're not willing to do that, the best way to do this is to use a package like Stability Matrix, which is what I use, or you can use, I believe, Pinocchio has an installer now, or can install Forge from their interface as well. I use Stability Matrix. The reason why is they've got this beautifully simple interface that gives you access to select from a range of different packages. For, they're called inference packages. They have training packages as well. And you basically just click on it, pick your branch or the main branch, and then click install. It goes through, automatically installs all necessary components to run whatever packages that you want to run. So you could say it's kind of like a one-click installer. Now, Stability Matrix has a lot of other options that help you manage your AI images, the checkpoints or AI models that you download, and we're going to just go through that real quick. So first thing though, under the packages you have a lot of, once you get them installed, you can launch them. It tracks whether they need to be updated or not, and then you have access to the startup options that allow you to kind of refine or adjust how you want your package to run. Okay, so read up on the launch options. They're like dash commands. They'll help you understand what you can do on your specific system. Some people do various things to improve efficiency or to open them up so that you can access it over the network, that kind of thing. Stability Matrix does have its own inference interface. I don't really use it. I used it to generate a couple of images quite a while ago. But if you want something simple and want to learn that and you don't want to install any other packages, you can use this here. You got your positive prompt, negative prompt, and all the different settings that you would need to be able to generate some images. It's pretty simple. So the next thing we're going to go into is the checkpoints. Stability Matrix, I'm sorry, has it nailed when it comes to organizing and downloading checkpoints, whether it's from Civit AI or Hugging Face. It gives you the ability to organize your models, whether it's going to be controlnet preprocessors, LoRa's, or your actual Stable Diffusion models. So typically when you download a model, you stick it into the models/Stable Diffusion folder. And a lot of people don't know this, and here's a tip that you might want to remember is you're going to start collecting models. And so one of the best ways to organize these is to create subfolders. So I've created a subfolder called 1.5. That's for my SD 1.5 models, 2.1 again for SD 2.1. I have a folder specifically for my Inpainting models, SDXL models, so on and so forth, and the SDXL Turbo and LCM, which also includes the Lightning models as well. So you can come in here and see all your Lightning models. Now, this gives you the ability to track and connect them with Civit AI so that you can track for things like updates or even new models, new versions of the models. So definitely consider how you organize this. And you can do it all from this interface. So this Stable Diffusion drop-down accordion represents the folder called Stable Diffusion in the root models folder of the package. So what you would do, or in this instance in Stability Matrix, it represents the root of the Stability Matrix data models folder. So the Stable Diffusion folder, it falls underneath that one. And you can actually create folders, new folders here. So you can show and explore or click new, go to folder, create a new folder and start organizing different models in different ways. Maybe you have models that are specifically anime. Maybe you have models that are specifically for photography. You can organize them that way. Absolutely. I believe you can even make subfolders under these folders, allowing you to organize them even more. It's nice being able to do this, and I'm just going to quickly show you why. So in the interface, you have your drop-down menu for your checkpoints and models, and as you can see, it gets pretty long. And what's nice though is you can type in a search. Let's say I only want to see Lightning models or Turbo models or Inpainting models. So it'll actually bring up, it looks like I gotta do some more organization on some of this, but because I put the folder name Inpainting, it just immediately brings that up so I can see all the checkpoints that are in my Inpainting folder. So let's go back to Stability Matrix here. So that gives you an idea of how to use this. The model browser is absolutely phenomenal. I love this. So it ties into Civit AI and Hugging Face and gives you the ability to sort by whether it's highest rated, most downloaded, that kind of thing. The model type, whether it's all checkpoints, controlnet, whatever, switch to checkpoints, and I've got it set to SD 1.5, so what it'll do is it'll bring up and show you all the different checkpoints that are just 1.5 checkpoints. If I wanted to switch to SDXL Lightning, I can just drop it down, select SDXL Lightning models. You can show the not safe for work content if you'd like. You can do a search for specific models here. Let's see if we can do that. I don't know if I spelled that right. Let's go back. You can do partial search, and there's Juggernaut XL. And when you find the one you want, obviously you can see this one shows it's installed. You can click on it. Typically they'll have example pictures, and over here they'll have a check mark next to the one that you have installed, if at all. And if there's one you want to download, let's go find one that maybe I don't, or maybe there's an update to or something. So let's do this. I like to sort it by installed. This helps me find the ones that I've already got installed. It'll also show which ones have updates available. So let's go into this one right here. Right now I'm on the 1.51. This one has an update to 1.6. So the process that I would do for this is I would remove this one first, unless you want to keep it. Maybe it does something that this new one doesn't. But I would remove this one first and then go and install this one. Not that they would cause a conflict. It's just that when you initiate a download for the new one, it doesn't let you do anything else in here, so you can't remove this one while that one's downloading, so you have to wait until it's done downloading. And then down here you can select which folder you want to drop it into. The default, or select the, for like this one here would be my SDXL Turbo LCM. I would select that, here, select import, and it would import it. So they've made it very easy to organize and keep track of your models. Now these next sections, output browser and workflows, I don't usually use a whole lot. I have different ways of managing like my pictures, and I don't use Comfy UI, so I don't have a workflow library yet. So in the output browser, it allows you to go in and browse the images that you've created under each package. So it gives you kind of this tree structure of your packages that you have installed, and then you can go into each of the output folders, so whether it's images, image grids, or the text images, and actually browse through those. So it gives you some options on how to manage them. You can delete, select all, remove, or do whatever you need to with them. You can even do a search. Workflows, again, are specifically for Comfy UI. And what's nice is, again, I don't use Comfy UI. I haven't taken the time to learn how to use the nodes effectively. Sometimes when I do try, I get a little frustrated. And I tend to revert back to using Automatic 1111 or the WebUI Forge. So if you want to try that, this gives you the option of organizing your workflows so you know which one does what. Really, the key point behind Stability Matrix is a central point of management. So you can centrally manage your inference packages. You can centrally manage your checkpoints. What it does, it puts all your models, checkpoints into a central folder, and then shares them between the different packages that you have installed. So you're not having multiple copies of these really large multi-gigabyte checkpoints. Okay, now that we've gone through Stability Matrix, we're going to go into the WebUI interface and just go over the basic sections real quick, and then we'll dive into some details. We'll talk about specific extensions that have helped me out in being more efficient, being able to generate images quicker, switch settings quicker, and overall make your workflow a lot more efficient. So the first thing we're going to go through is the primary WebUI page here that opens up first thing when you open it up. This is your text to image tab, and you'll have several other tabs along the top here. We'll go through a couple of those later on. Up here you have where you select the model you want to use. Again, if you have them organized right, you can find them quickly. We're going to just dive in here. We're going to select the Reality's Edge, which is the one I love using, the Turbo V7. It's just a good all-around general model. Works really well on a lot of different medium types. So SDVAE, some older models, the 1.5, not necessarily 1.5 models, but older SDXL models require a VAE. Some 1.5 and 2.1 models do too. A lot of the newer ones have this all baked in. You never have to worry about it. Clip skip, this is a customization I added. Normally you'd have to go into settings to adjust this. It allows you to tell it to skip steps, I believe is how it works. So I'm not going to go into that. I don't ever use it. I've not really found a use for it in what I do. Maybe somebody else does. Down here you have your positive prompt. This is everything you want to see in the image. So I mean, it's really as simple as that. You type in whatever you want. The models typically work best at a 75 token limit before it creates another 75 token chunk. But if you go over 75 tokens, it has a harder time focusing on anything after that. There's other ways around that, not necessarily anything you need to worry about. Next thing you have is your negative prompt. This is everything you don't want to see in the image. And this is kind of one of those things that works good with the 1.5, 2.1 models. SDXL is not as bad. I found that not using a negative prompt in SDXL renders works just fine. I do have a negative prompt set up for SDXL images depending on what it is I'm doing. Okay, so really just think of it this way: everything you do want, everything you don't want. And if you're trying to do, say, a portrait image of a family in a garden, okay, down here, maybe you would put in the negative prompt, you put in mutilated, extra limbs, deformed, ugly, bad proportions, things like that, that you just don't want to see. All right. Over here, we have our styles menu. Now this is tied into a CSV file that's stored in the root of the package directory, so the root of the Forge directory. It's like a spreadsheet that you can edit manually, or you can add here using their little tool they've got built in, where you can type in a name or select an existing, we'll say an existing style. Okay. We'll come over here, select this one, 1860s photo. Okay, 1860s photos, vignette, high detail, worn. And you put in whatever you want in your positive prompt. You can put a negative prompt here. This saves you some time and you save it. But then this saves you time, so you're not having to type it all up here. You just come down here, select it, and then you can type in extra stuff if you want. But you can stack these too. So let's say HDR photo and maybe analog camera filter. So it'll combine those. And so the way it orders this would be at the beginning of the prompt, next in line on the prompt, and so on and so forth. So we'll go into detail on some of this as well, because there's some variable options you can actually do that make this super powerful. Next on here, you have your generation options. In generation options, there are several items that we'll probably go over in a little more detail later, but you have your sampler. This is how the interfaces with the model. And there are a lot of different types of samplers, and this is all about personal preference, which one works best for you. You can see the result you want. Most people use Euler A. With the Forge edition, you have some other options that come in down here, the turbo models, which you would typically use with Lightning or Turbo edition versions of your checkpoints. Sampling steps is how many steps you're giving the AI model to complete the task. Lightning models will be lower, typically between 4 and 12. Normal models will be upwards of 20 to 50, depending on, again, what it is you're doing, the result you want to get. You have high-res fix and refiner. High-res fix essentially doubles the resolution, re-renders that same image at that resolution, most of the time adding detail and giving you a larger image. It can take a while because it's re-rendering the whole image at twice the resolution that you originally rendered it at. The refiner is something that was introduced with SDXL models. There was two separate models originally. There was the SDXL base and then the refiner model, which you had to use separately. Since then, most people bake that in, and so if you're like, let's say I have the Reality's Edge Lightning model here, I would just come down and select that same model and tell it at which point during the render process I would like it to switch over to utilizing the refiner option, and this represents a percentage through the render. So if I put it at 60.66, that means 66% of the way through rendering the image, it's going to switch over to the refiner model and start adding smaller details. The nice thing about the Forge version of the WebUI is they've done most of the stuff under the accordion buttons, but also they give you the ability to just click a checkbox here to enable or disable it, as where in the automatic 11.11 interface, at least prior versions that I use, they didn't have the checkbox here. You had to open it up, modify it, and close it. Some of them, what it'll do is it only enables if you open it like this, instead of having to click a checkbox, which got a little annoying. Down here you have your aspect ratio, or your width and height of the image. This is literally that. How many pixels wide, how many pixels high? And now you may want to study up on this. There are specific resolutions that different models work with. 1.5 models were trained on 512 by 512 images. Some of the 1.5 models were trained on 768 by 768 images, and so some of them do work well rendering at higher resolutions. One specifically, if I remember correctly, I think was the RPG Artist Tools. Works really well at 768 by 768 image resolutions. One of the extensions I use here, you'll see it here, this is called Aspect Ratio Helper. It allows you to quickly switch between different aspect ratios. We'll go through some of the necessary extensions that I think everybody should be using to help improve efficiency. We'll go through that in a little bit. Next, you have batch count and batch size. A lot of people get confused on this. The batch size is how many images you're going to generate at the same time in a single batch. So if I set this to 2, that means it's going to generate 2 images one time. So you get 2 images total. If you increase the batch count to say 4, that means it's going to generate 2 images 4 times. So for a total of 8 images. So it's going to render 2 images in each batch. Okay. Hope that makes sense. When I first started off, I kind of had a hard time understanding that, and I would actually only do batch size. I'd actually set this to 4 because I have a 12 gigabyte VRAM card, which I can do up to 4 images at a time. And I've actually modified my config file so that I don't go above 4. I can just slide it all the way to 4. But I've actually not used this much anymore. I typically will just come over here, set the batch count to whatever, 4 or 5, and then just hit generate. And it generates 1 image at a time really quickly and just kind of blazes through it. Config scale is, I don't have a good explanation for this, and I know there's a good one out there. Basically what this is it different models will use different numbers on this. So like 1.5, 2.1, and SDXL models will typically be upwards of 6 to 7 and 8. You can go higher. Typically the higher you go, though, the more saturated, I'm going to just say that, saturated the image looks. It's not about saturation, though, I get that, but that's what happens. Like you generate an image at 1 on a Lightning model, it's going to look bland, it's going to look a little dull. When you slide it up to, say, for this model I have here, Reality's Edge, if I slide it to 3, the image looks a lot more color correct in the sense that the colors are vivid, they're accurate. If I keep going up, though, if I go up to 6.5 or 7, they look blown out, like way oversaturated. That's the best explanation I can give to it, give on that. You'll have to play around with it and just see what works for you. The next option down here is the seed. This is a number, random number, that is fed into the AI that helps it to generate random images. -1 means it's just going to use a random seed each time. You can actually type in a specific number here, and if you hit generate, it will generate a specific image every single time. Meaning, like, if I leave this, let's do a throne. I'm just going to type throne. The prompt can be super simple. We're going to generate that. It's going to generate 1 image. That took a little while. Anyways, I'm using the DPM++2M Keras, not the Turbo Edition, and I've got it set to 44 steps. This is a turbo model. If I set this down to where it should have been, I typically use a config preset for this, so do that. It's going to generate a different image this time, but 3.5, and we're going to switch this over to a turbo model. Regenerate, it'll be a lot quicker. There you go. So if I hit generate on that again, because I'm using the same seed, it will always generate that image as long as I don't modify any of these other settings. Here's the weird thing about this, is you can leave the prompt the same and the seed the same, but if you come over here and adjust anything with the width, the config scale, the sampler, the number of steps, it will give you a different image. It might be similar, but it's going to be different. So just keep that in mind as you're going through and doing this, that if you want to get the same image, you got to get all the exact same settings. Okay, let's move into the next one, a detailer. This is one that you will be using a lot, especially if you're going to be rendering anything with people in it. A detailer is a custom model. They're custom models, and I'll show you here, that are designed to improve things like the face, the whole person, your like hands, which I've not had much success with that. Hands are so weird in Stable Diffusion. Most AI image generation models have issues with hands. So typically we'll leave it on face. You enable it, render the image, and what it does is post rendering the main image, it'll detect where the faces are, or the body, and create a bounding rendering area for that, and inpaint that with a new render, slightly improving it, hopefully improving it, using a low denoise strength. That's just kind of the purpose of that. Again, it's something that works really well. I use it all the time. I even have it specifically tied into my prompt generator online for generating images that I don't want to have to come in here and mess with it necessarily. I just go into my control panel and enable it down here. So, and then I can just render images here all day long. So that's a detailer. Now, I'm not going to go into some of these other ones. One of the other extensions that comes built in standard with the Forge edition is the controlnet. And this will be, I have other tutorials on this. This requires its own tutorial. You will want to get to know this because you will be using things like OpenPose, Canny, Tile, that kind of thing, depending on what it is you're trying to do. And the last thing I'm going to go through on this page is the scripts. So with the scripts, more specifically, there's two that I will use, but I will go over another one here. So prompts from file or text box. This is a good one if you want to test multiple prompts at the same time. And as an example, let me show you. We're going to generate some cinematic photography, and we're going to generate 5 prompts. So we'll submit that. What we're going to do is just grab 5 randomly generated cinematic photography prompts, throw them into the text box. So we get our prompts down here. Okay, we got 5 of them. We're going to copy the clipboard, come over here, and we're going to select the prompts from file or text box, and then we just paste these into here. And as long as they recognize that there is a carriage return, and what I mean by carriage return is that at the end of the first prompt there is an enter. It doesn't necessarily have to have a blank line there even. It just has to recognize that there is a new paragraph. Okay? So typically I like to have mine with spaces in between. And then once you get that in, as long as you got all the other settings right, you can just come up here and hit generate. And what it'll do is it'll go through and generate each one of those prompts that you have set up there. These are pretty random, nothing special about them. Okay, so the next script that we're going to go into, change this over here, is the XYZ plot. This is something you're definitely going to want to get to know. Okay, so what this allows you to do is set up really almost like a test grid of rendering options. So let's say you want to test a prompt, one specific prompt, against multiple checkpoints. You would actually come in here and select checkpoint name, and then you come over here to the values and select however many prompts, or not prompts, sorry, checkpoints or models that you would like to test your prompt against. And what it will do is create a grid. In this case, it would probably be just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a 5x1 grid, showing what the image looks like at these settings, but with these different checkpoints. And you probably set a seed, that kind of thing. We're going to set that back to random. Oh, in case I didn't talk about this. The dice mean when you click this, it just sets it back to -1, meaning it's just going to use a random seed each time. This button here, if it works for you, will copy the seed number from the last viewed image, typically, meaning that you click this and it's supposed to fill this in. If for some reason on mine it doesn't work, I'm not worried about it. If I want the seed, I just come over here, copy it, and then paste it into here. So, okay. So now let's say that will show you what the image will look like with different checkpoints. This is nice because maybe you're looking for a specific checkpoint that gives you the look you want. Okay, it's great. The other thing, you can do a lot of different things with this. changing the number of steps, seeing how does my prompt look with a specific model. And let's say I want to see it at 4 steps, 8 steps, 16 steps, and 30 steps. So you can kind of see what the difference is going to be between those. So, and it generates this really nice grid layout showing you which one is which and allows you to really hone in that image, getting the detail and or the refinement or the style that you're looking for. It's a great option. The last thing I'll go into here, this is actually an extension that you can install called ABG Remover, and that stands for Automatic Background Remover. And this works pretty good. I'll show you this one, and there's another one I want to go into. Let's go portrait. Yeah, portrait of a dog head on black background. I think we're going to change this over to a 4x5. Everything else I think can stay the same. Generate that. What this does is it renders the image, and then it uses this script to cut out the background, automatically converting it to a. It's supposed to convert it over to like a PNG with a transparent background. I think it's not working on this because I have mine set to save it as a JPEG, which doesn't work for transparency. So you'd have to go over your settings and go back here and change this to PNG. And I'll show you that later because there's another extension that I love using that works in the Extras tab that works, I think, a little bit better at removing backgrounds. So that's it with this main interface. So before I go into anything else, let's talk about extensions. There are about 5 or 6 extensions that I use that I've learned over the months. I know the stuff really has only been around for 1.5 years, 2 years, but that I use in my workflow that help speed things up. And since we're down at the bottom of the page here, I'm going to show you a couple of them. The first one is this one here called Config Presets. What this allows you to do is you set all your settings the way you want. You get your sampler set, you get the number of steps set, whether you want high-res fix, and all these different settings. Then you come down here and you can actually create a config preset and name it and tell it which of the settings you want it to save. So however, I think it ties into the, so we're on the text to image, so all these are going to be text to image settings. You can even add some custom fields. Give it a name and then save it. And then that allows you to just select that from a menu. So if I want to do portraits, I've got some set up for SDXL Turbo, and it goes through and configures everything the way I want it. And I can just start generating. I just start plugging my prompts in and generating. Same with landscape. I've got one set up for landscape right here. Let's see, right there. And again, it automatically configures the aspect ratio. The batch count I have set at 4 because I want to see some variation. I got to adjust this one because typically I'm using this model and I don't like the 1. I usually have it at 3. Anyway, I can actually update that and drop this in here. I've made that slight change to that, and maybe I don't want 4 in the batch count. So we just set all that, come down here, save. And it saves it just like that. It doesn't create a new one, just resaves that one. This is a great, this has saved me so much time in being able to just select the settings I want and bam, they're all done. I don't have to worry about it. I can just start rendering and working with images. So another, let's see, the aspect ratio helper is another extension that will save you tons of time. I used to go through and try to figure out, okay, well at 768, width, what is a 16:9 aspect ratio, and I'd have to do the math, figure that out. And there's some other extensions that do this, but this one has been the most efficient and easiest to use. Most of the other ones will add an accordion button down here that you expand, select the aspect ratio. This one's nice because it's just right here. And this button right here is one that just comes with the Forge or Automatic 1111 or WebUI interface, and it allows you to flip the aspect ratio. So the aspect ratio helper does have some settings that, in order to get that little button there, you would actually come over here and find your aspect ratio, what do you call it, setting, menu setting here. And you come up here and enable JavaScript aspect ratio controls. And then you can add in some custom aspect ratios if you like. And by putting this check mark in here, though, it adds this button right here, giving you very quick access to different aspect ratios. Okay, so we've talked about the aspect ratio helper and config presets, and I did introduce the ABG Remover. So the other background remover actually shows up under extras when you install it. So this one is called just remove background. It's pretty simple. I'll show you. I'll add links to these to the GitHub pages so you can install them. This one tends to work better. It's got some more options that allow you to remove the background without creating an alpha matting, or you can select this and it creates a transparency, but you got to be working with PNGs for this. Okay, but it gives you some options based on maybe the type of image you're using, whether you just want to use a general background removal, these ones here, whether you're working with human form, clothing, or cloth, and then even like anime, I think. Yeah, anime. These ones work pretty good. I've actually used this one a lot when generating like t-shirt images. It does a great job removing those backgrounds. I haven't tried the other one with t-shirt images. It tends to leave a little bit of a halo around the subject matter, but I may go back and try it again. So the other extension that honestly I love, I don't use it as often as I should, mostly because I've been focused on a lot of other things like integrating image generation in my prompt generator, but would be Inpaint Anything. This is I love this extension. You drop an image in here and have it run the segment anything, and what it does is it creates this segmented by color image where you can select the different areas and mask those out and then just inpaint just those sections, allowing you to do things like improve faces, change the color of clothing, even change the type of the object that's in there. And I do have a tutorial on this that goes through and explains it in detail, but this is a must-have, I think, especially if you're going to be working and doing a lot of inpainting. Sometimes it's easier just to come in here, select the area, and inpaint that one area. Okay, what we're going to go through next is the image-to-image tab. So this is similar to the text image, except what you'll be doing is working with existing images, whether it's re-rendering them to add more detail, to get variations. In fact, let's do that. Let's get an image, and I'll show you some things that we can do with this. Let's just get some more random prompts here. We'll copy over just one of them. Just get an image for us to work with here. Okay, that one didn't work out so well. Let's grab a different one. Actually, let's get rid of cinematic photography altogether. Let's just generate some random prompts. Oops, let's grab that one. That one you'd probably use a negative prompt on. It just didn't generate very well. There we go. Okay. So we have this beautiful watercolor painted image. And what you do is down here, once you get the image you want to start working with, you have some buttons down here. And you want to be familiar with these. They're just icons. They used to have words in them, but they decided it would be more efficient, save more space, if they just made icons. So you can actually open the folder that the image exists in. You can save this image as a favorite. Create a zip, like say you have multiple images that you've generated, you can actually compress it as a zip file and save it. This one here sends it over to the image-to-image tab. This one sends it to the inpaint. This is a sub-tab under image-to-image for inpainting. This one sends it to the extras tab for doing upscaling and removing backgrounds, that kind of thing. And then some of these other ones I don't use, so upscaled version of the current image. So that may be something I'll dive into because I think you just click that and it automatically uses the high-res fix option. So it might be something interesting. So we're going to send it over to the image-to-image first. It should automatically switch over. It'll send the prompt over and all settings so that you're all set up and ready to go. Now, typically in this in the just the standard image to image tab here, and then the sub tab of image to image, you're going to be working mostly with the denoise strength, config scale, and possibly sampling steps and some various other things. So this is another area where you're going to want to have some presets. So I will come over here and we have an upscale preset, Inpaint, new object, Inpaint, refinement, that kind of thing. We're going to just render out some variations of this image. And so what we're going to do, we're going to leave the sampling steps the same. We're going to change this to a turbo model because we're still using the Reality's Edge XL Lightning V7. Now down here, the config scale we're going to leave the same because I want the color to be just as vivid. I want the detail to be there. But now what we're going to be talking about is denoise strength. Denoise strength is what tells the AI how much leeway it has to change the image. The higher the number, the more change you're going to get. The lower the number, the less change you're going to get. And this comes in very important. It's a very important aspect when dealing with like Inpainting. If we're just looking to get some variations on this image, like let's say this image looks great, but maybe I want something a little different. So let's come down here and we're going to render out maybe 5 more versions of this particular image. Okay, and we just set that to 5. Make sure the denoise strength is up here. Maybe I want a little higher. I want something that's going to be substantially different. So we're going to set it at 0.8, and then just come over here and hit generate. Because I've set it at 0.8, we basically said to the AI, hey, let's just generate some different images. Okay, it's kind of like mixing it up and just moving things around almost. They're completely unique images, but you're going to get similar styles, similar colors, similar objects in the image because we're using the same prompt, but it's just shifting it around. Or I shouldn't say shifting around, but it's giving you a similar image. Now let's say we don't want it to change that much. Let's bring it down to 0.55 maybe. Render that out. Now if you pay attention, you're going to see that it's changing, but the overall structure stays the same. The river stays the same. It's got the same bridge. But you're getting just some slight variations of this same image here. So it allows you to really kind of throw out a bunch to get the one that you want. If you understand what I'm talking about. So this one actually looks better. I like this one. I like the planter boxes on the buildings. Just whatever your preference is. Okay. So this is one of those features. This denoise strength is something that's very important when dealing with controlnet as well, on how much it's going to change various aspects of the image. Also with Inpainting. So this is something you'll want to get to know, get a good feel for, because it's going to do different things depending on the type of image you're working with. Now I'm not going into a lot of the other features under image, the image to image. So like we have just resize, crop and resize, resize and fill, or just resize. And that just deals with how it's going to output the resultant image. Right now we have it set to just resize. So if I change this here, like I want to keep the aspect ratio. So 1024 by 680, I think that's a 16 by 9. Maybe it was something completely different. That's interesting. So let's, let's just say we want, I don't like the fact that it did this aspect ratio. I'm not sure what it was originally. I'd have to go back and look. But let's say we want to put it at a 16 by 9. Okay. So what I would actually want to do is not just resize, because all that's going to do is distort the image. I want to actually crop and resize. And what that'll do is it'll crop it to that where you saw the red circle. Let me show you something here. So it's 576. So if you start moving this around, it shows you a red overlay, so you can kind of get an idea of where the image it's going to output or what the size is going to be. Okay, so we want this to actually be a 16 by 9 aspect ratio. So I'm going to set it to that. We're going to drop this down. We're only going to render one image. But we want to set it to crop and resize. So it's going to crop it and then resize the image if necessary. So it's going to crop out some of the stuff like some of the sky and some of the river, or just re-render the image. But now we have an actual 16 by 9 image. Okay. I'm not going to go into all of them. Again, I always recommend play around with it. Get a feel for the interface. Experiment. See, because the results are going to vary depending on the system. And then you have all the other standard options, the A detailer, which we've already talked about, controlnet. You will be using controlnet in the image-to-image a lot, especially with the OpenPose, canny, that kind of thing. So if we were to, let's say we take this image, I really like the layout of this image. I like where the buildings are. I like where the river is. Maybe I want it to be something completely different though. Maybe I want it to be a photograph. Okay, and here's how you would do that. Go into ControlNet. We're going to enable this. We're going to upload an independent control image. We want it to be pixel perfect. Okay. Now we're going to drag this image over here. Drop it right there. So it utilizes that image. And then let's say, like I said, I want the same structure. I love this structure. But now we're going to select canny. And now we're going to come up here to the prompt. And I actually want to change this prompt here. So I'm going to come back over here. I want to keep the same prompt, but change it to overall photography. So in my modify here, this is what I call my prompt forge. So we're going to change all to photography. Modify. It's going to go through and regenerate those exact prompts with those modification requests. Come down here to the third one. I'm going to grab that one. I'm going to drop that one in here. So we have, I didn't quite do it the way I wanted it to. Let's try that again. Let's go back to that. Let's just change all to professional photography. Let's see what that does. Come down here, professional photography, there we go. Grab that, drop that in there. So what we're doing is we're telling it, this is what ControlNet is basically doing with this canny selection. It creates this nice outline. In fact, let's preview it. I'll show you. When you preview it, it shows an outline of the different edges and things like that it finds. This helps guide the AI in whatever image you generate next. And so, honestly, I think we should be doing this in the text image because this is going to get really interesting. I think we're going to turn up the denoise strength on this because I want it to really change it. Gives the AI the freedom to actually really modify it. So this might be an interesting result. So now that we've got all that set, control it, we're going to leave it 1 and then leave everything else. So now we're going to hit generate. Give this thing to load the ControlNet. And there you go. You got something that's a little more photographic, quite a bit more photographic, and kind of, the similar color scheme, but it's very realistic versus that. Very cool. I mean, it did change some things in how the houses are. Oh, that's the original image. So if we come down here and show this right here, yeah, it looks exactly like it, except it's more of a photograph. So it worked well. So that's ControlNet. There's a lot of aspects of ControlNet. I do believe I have other tutorials on this. We aren't going to dive into that. The one big one that we are going to dive into here is doing an upscale and outpainting. These two are really important when modifying images or upscaling your image. So let's say we like this image here. Okay, the one we just generated that's got that's more photographic. We're going to send that over to the original image-to-image window, replacing the watercolor. Now we're going to come down here and we're set to the proper aspect ratio. Because we're upscaling, we do not want it to modify the image too much. For upscaling, especially doing the ultimate SD upscale, you want to be between, I believe, 0.2 and 0.3, depending on what's in the image. If you have people in the image, it could get a little weird. And what you're trying to avoid is the tiling effect, where you can kind of see the tile seams. And what I've also found is you want to switch the model for this. So we're going to switch this over to an Inpainting model so an SDXL inpainting model. I believe the Dreamshaper XL Lightning Inpainting is the one I love using. Once you have that switched over, we come down here, and there's two things you got to set up to do a proper upscale. So this is a real brief overview of upscaling. So you're going to want to go to controlnet, make sure it's enabled. We don't need to worry about these images here, actually. All we're going to select is tile. Don't care about preview, don't care about upload independent control image. And then give it a second to kind of catch up with itself there. Make sure the preprocessor shows tile resample. Then we come down here to the script, and we're going to select Ultimate SD Upscale. A couple things you want to pay attention to in here. The target size should always be scale from image size. I think by default it is not set to this. I've modified my interface config file so it always is this, so I don't have to worry about changing it. And then the sampler, depending on what your preference is. I used to use the 4K Ultra Sharp or 4X Ultra Sharp a lot. I am now using the 4X NMKD SciX 200K for my upscales, and that's it. Those two settings, scale from image size and select your sampler. Once you've got those selected and you've set your denoise strength to a low denoise strength, at this point you just click render, or generate, sorry, and let it go through that. What it does, it takes that image, tiles it, and goes through and re-renders each of those tiles, blending each one in so that there should be no seams. And it will give you an image that is twice the size because we have it set to do double the image size. So as you can see, I added in a bit more detail. So I'm opening this up full size here. So using this little double arrow, it actually opens it up so you can see the full size of the image. And it's, you know, it allows you to inspect the details. It did add some detail to it, which is nice. Still a fairly low res image. You can do this as many times as you want. Send it over to image. As you can see, it automatically detects the current image size. I don't think for this image we need to modify anything. Depending on what you're doing, if there's gradients in the background, you might want to drop this down a little bit lower, like 0.18. And then you come down, you know, all these other settings can stay the same. You just click generate again. This will take a little longer because the original image is a little bit bigger. Segments it out, and then goes through and starts rendering each segment. All right, it's just about done. There we go. This should give you a much more refined, detailed image. This one I should have lowered the denoise strength down a little bit on. And this is what I'm talking about up here. If you look up here in the top, this is what I'm talking about when I say tiling effect. And you can kind of see it there, but if you come over here, you can see that there is some tiling going on. These blocks here. Okay, to get rid of that, you just got to lower the denoise strength down. So I'd probably bring it down to like 0.15, maybe 0.18. You just have to adjust until you get the result you want, and just regenerate it. Okay, so that's the Ultimate SD Upscale. Now, the one other thing I want to go through is, I'll bring it up here. Down here, the other script is the Outpaint MK2. Now, a lot of people, this came out a long time ago. I still like it. It still works really good. Basically allows you to take an image. Let's say you have a square image and you want to outpaint the sides. So just as an example, we'll select that. But we're going to come back over here and we're going to render this one out, but we're going to do it at a 1-to-1 ratio. Oh, you know what? We need to switch. Let's switch this back over to the reality's edge here. Okay. Re-render that. So we get this, you know, it's a pretty picture, 1-by-1 ratio. Let's send this over to image. Give it a second to pop up. Should also incorporate the prompt, as it were. Okay, there we go. And we want to extend this out left and right. So again, we're going to want to make sure we are on the proper inpainting, or have an inpainting model selected. or else it just doesn't blend those edges very well. We are going to want to have the denoise strength up to, for doing an outpainting like this, we want it pretty high, usually above 0.9. And we're only going to do left and right, so we're going to switch off up and down. I usually, depending on how much you want to outpaint, you pick whatever you want here. I'm going to do a full 256. The mask blur, we're going to switch this up to, I think, about 32. Sometimes I go all the way to 64, but we're just going to do 32 this time. And that's all we need to do. So what we're going to do now is just hit generate. And it does this, it creates this new image off to the side here and just generates something off to the side that is all similar to the other one. And then it does the same thing over here. So this one actually did a pretty good job. So you get this kind of house right here that's kind of blended. And I re-rendered that side, but this side turned out perfect. So a lot of times you don't want to be messing around like with doing two sides at the same time. So just as a recommendation, you do one side at a time until you get the result you want. In fact, you may even turn your batch up to like 3 or 4 or even just 2. And render out a few of them, find the one you want, send it over to the image again, and then do the other side. It's having a hard time with that side, isn't it? Let's do this. Let's do the mask blur. Let's turn the mask blur all the way up. What that does is it kind of takes in the area of that size and tries to blur that whole blur. I say blur, but it incorporates it into the image. Yeah, we're definitely using the Inpainting model. It's still doing this weird thing here. You can actually inpaint that, but that's not bad. We could work with that. Anyway, so that's kind of what that does. I actually wonder if I need to have this all the way up. Sometimes like 0.99 to actually get the effect we want. Yeah. It's incorporating into that building a lot better. Interesting. Something fun to work with. Okay, so that's really it for the image-to-image stuff. Now we're going to move on to Inpainting. So it's under the image-to-image, and then you go to Inpainting. And this is a tool you're going to get used to real quick. So we're going to send this image over here, and we're going to use the Inpainting tab. So this one right here looks like the palette. Sends over the prompt, should send over the image, okay? And this is what allows you to add, remove different aspects to the image. Let's just pick something, for instance. Like, I don't like this bridge right here. It's not really connecting to anything. This is more of a retaining wall, but I don't like this one right here. So let's go over here. Let's change our brush size. And we're just going to get rid of this, and I'll show you how that works. We mask out the area that we want to change. The mask, depending on what you incorporate with it, will give the AI the context it needs to work with. Now, what I've learned, the trick I've learned in removing objects, is you don't want the AI to focus too much on this area, because all it's going to do is re-render that bridge. What I found is changing either one of two things. Come down here, we're going to be doing only masked, okay? And the only masked padding pixels, we want, for this particular instance, we could turn it all the way down or leave it the same, but for what we're doing here to get rid of that bridge, we want to defocus the AI. Think of the AI like, if we're masking this out, that AI is going to be super focused on that area. But let's say I click out here, let's say in the clouds, so we have a mask out there. The AI is going to create this bound in in the only masked area, it's going to create this bounding box that encompasses this area. That's the aspect ratio that we choose. So we're going to set it to 1 to 1, 1024 by 1024. It's going to create this bounding box around this whole thing here. And that forces the AI to have to focus on the whole thing. So let's say it's on the whole thing. It takes the whole thing into context, which doesn't allow it to focus necessarily right here. But let's change the prompt. We want the prompt to be just a lazy river, possibly. That's all we're going to say. Okay. But because the AI is so defocused, it's going to do that. It's going to take all this into context down here and here. And this is hard to explain, but basically you're just not allowing the AI to focus on that bridge. So let's go ahead and try that. We're going to increase the mask just a little bit, or the mask blur. And I think that's it. Sampling steps are fine. We're going to turn it up. When you're inpainting, you want it to be a little higher. So we're using an SDXL Lightning inpainting model. So make sure you have your steps up a little higher than the 6 or 8. This right here does not need to be this high. This can be down to the normal set 0.75. And we'll leave it at batch count there. Make sure we shut off any scripts that we might have had selected. And we'll come up here and generate and see if it gets rid of that bridge. It looks like it added some people in there. It got rid of the bridge. So that's not bad. Got rid of the bridge, got some kids playing in the river. Wasn't quite what I was expecting. If I wanted to just get rid of the kids, I'd probably put in the negative prompt here, I'd put in boat, people, kids. And leave everything else, I think, the same. And you're going to be generating and regenerating. That's kind of one of the things about AI is getting the result you want may require regenerating a few times. So that's not bad. I mean, not that one, but like this one right here, this would be easy to work with. Sometimes because, actually, let me show you the other option you have. We're using original, so it's taking the original content in that mask and it's kind of trying to utilize that to regenerate the image. Let's say we don't want that. Let's get rid of, let's just use fill. So it's going to negate anything that's under there and just regenerate whatever's there. Or regenerate the image from scratch. And that will give us the result we want. Got some people in that one, but that one's okay. There's some stones there. We could go through and fix that. I feel like, hold on. Okay, that in a nutshell is Inpainting. There's a lot of experimentation with that. There's going to be a lot of things to try, and I do have some other tutorials on doing Inpainting, showing you how to add objects, how to remove objects, change various aspects of it. Okay, let's dive into just a couple other aspects of the WebUI interface. You have the Extras tab. There are a few things that you can do under here. When you send an image over to here, you can do a basic upscale. I say basic because the type of upscale that this does is probably not the most efficient. My experience is that it actually, you lose detail. Almost like it kind of smears things a little bit. I mean, overall it does increase the resolution of the image, but it's not a good upscaler to do it this way. It's always better to do the Ultimate SD upscale option, and there's some other options to doing upscales as well. What I typically use this interface for is for the removing the background, or another extension you can use is Pixelize. This is a fun one. Just allows you to take an image and convert it over to pixel art. Let's just show you real quick. Like yeah, I mean, this is a great one. I mean, it looks like a watercolor painting, but let's send it over to extras. Come down here. We're going to select Pixelize. Keep resolution, that's important. And then the pixel size, let's just, I don't know, turn it up to 6 and hit generate. Shouldn't take too long for this to happen. And it gives you this thing that looks like it's out of a retro video game. Looks very cool. I love it. I actually have another tutorial on this too, on how to do pixel art. So just a fun little extension to if you're into doing pixel art or retro stuff. Very cool. If you do want to use this interface to upscale, which sometimes I do, like if I'm doing like graphic tee art or anything that's a little more cartoonish, doesn't require the detail, like nothing that's photographic, like no photography. What I would do is send it over here and select like resize 2 times or 4 times. I wouldn't go anything above 4. Select your upscaler. Again, I would just do the 4x NMKD SciAx Sci 200K. You can do a second upscaler, but I don't really see any reason why. If somebody else has reasons why, then you can, maybe talk to them. Make sure you don't have anything else enabled. There's a lot of other options under here, but if you're just doing that basic upscale, just set this, set that, and then hit generate, and it'll do the upscale. Can take just a second. And this is one of the reasons I don't do this, is because of how fast it does the upscale. Come down here, and it's really flattening things out, and you're losing a lot of detail. It just is not the most efficient way to do stuff, I don't think. I don't feel that way anyway. So not my recommendation to use that if you're going to be upscaling. Okay, up at the top here, we're going to go over to PNG Info. This is just an interface that allows you to pull the generation information out of an image if it has it. Just as an example here, let's see if some of these images have the generation info. So you drop the image in there, and it comes over here, shows you the prompt that was used, negative prompt if any, sampler, steps, all that stuff. And you can actually take this and click send to text to image or image to image, and it should take those settings and migrate them over to whatever generation tab you want to work with it under. Now, these next tabs I haven't used. This is a lot more sophisticated stuff that you get into, whether it's merging checkpoints, doing training, just a lot of other things that we don't need to really get into. Inpaint Anything, again, I already have a tutorial on this, a little more in depth that you want to watch. So do a search for that. Your image browser, again, this is just something that allows you to browse the images that you've generated. This one's a really nice one though. It has a lot of different search capability in being able to look for something specific. So not only can you search by the file name, but if you're naming your files weird, like with just a number or date and time, you're not going to be able to search for it very easily. But here you can actually search for keywords in the prompt that you use to generate it. Very nice. And it gives you access to the text image, and various other folders that store the images. Now under settings, you'll want to get familiar with this in how it's set up, so you can customize things how you want to customize them. Just a couple things to point out. Switching between, I switch to JPEG most of the time because it saves space. There are smaller file sizes. By default though, it's usually on PNG, and you'll want it on PNG if you are going to be working with like the background removal tools, so you get those transparencies. Let's see, things to point out here. I think under the save image type, we don't need to worry too much about this stuff here. If you are going to be upscaling images, by default, if the image size goes above 4,000 pixels on any of the axes, which I've got mine changed here, but it's usually set to like 4096. What it does is it automatically scales it back down. Like if you try to go over that, it'll just automatically scale it back down to 4096. So I actually have mine changed so that it only does that if it goes over 12,000 pixels in any one direction. Or if the file size goes over 12 megabytes, then it will automatically scale it back or save it as a JPEG. Okay. Let's come back up here. Let's see, optimizations. You can actually set, let's see, is this the one where I'm thinking of? Nope. Nope. go down to the Stable Diffusion. So because I have a lot of RAM in my system, I actually have this here where it says maximum number of checkpoints loaded at the same time. I have this set at 10 because I'm also running an API backend that when this is set and models are instead of unloaded from VRAM and just dumped, what it does is it moves it from VRAM into regular RAM, and then if I need to switch back to that model, it's a much quicker switch. It loads it in from RAM instead of off the SSD. This here just tells it to keep only one model on the GPU, essentially. This here is an older thing. They just say keep it on 0 because it uses this one up here. So if you do have a decent amount of RAM, let's say 32 gigabytes or more, you can set this to like 2. And if there's a couple of models, like an Inpainting model and a normal model that you're switching between quite regularly, this actually helps speed things up drastically because it's not having to read it from the hard drive over the SATA bus or whatever it is. Instead, it's moving it from RAM to VRAM directly. Very cool, very nice to have. So there's one more thing I think I want to go through here. You can customize like which samplers are visible. Like if you're only using a few samplers, put check marks in all the ones you don't want to see. So under the sampler parameters, just put a check mark in the ones you don't use, and it reduces the overall menu size, which is nice. So down here, let's see, I think it's settings in UI. No, give me just a second. I want to show you how to get like custom options up here, like putting the SD, VAE, or the tiling checkbox. So by default, the tiling checkbox is not here. This allows you to create seamless tiled images. And it's nice to be able to do that for things like if you're selling stuff on Redbubble or Etsy that's a tiled image that repeats. It's nice to be able to have that without having to go into settings and turn it on. Okay, yeah, that didn't take long. It's under user interface. Under user interface. So the user interface. And it's right here, it's called quick settings list. So what this does, it gives you access to a lot of the different options in the WebUI interface. And you can actually set them, or when you enable them, it puts it up here at the top in kind of a grid. So if there's something that you access on a regular basis, you want to make sure it's up here. So you can customize that as much as you want. I think that's pretty much it for the interface. Definitely, check through some of these other options. There's uncategorized, which are typically settings for extensions that you install, giving you the ability to modify certain things for those extensions. Good thing to be familiar with. So the last thing I'm going to go over before I go through workflows is the extensions tab. So this is where you're going to add, organize, and update or remove extensions for your interface. And so typically what you're going to want to do, so you have installed, it'll show you all the ones that are installed. It'll give you links to the GitHub for the ones that are custom installations. The ones that are built in just shows built in. Those will update automatically if the interface updates. You have available. If you hit load from, it loads the list of available extensions that are registered under, so they have a specific GitHub for registering extensions, so a lot of these will be for that. And if you click on the title on each one, it should take you to the GitHub where you'll be able to read the instructions, and go through like troubleshooting steps, like they'll have a help and stuff like that for people who are experiencing similar issues possibly. Then you have install from URL. So there are extensions out there that are not a part of this repository, but they give you the GitHub URL. And you just copy, paste that in here, hit install, and if it's successful, it'll tell you that it was successfully installed. Now, after you install an extension, it's always recommended that you apply and quit. Or what you do is check for updates first, then apply and quit. So normally it would say apply and restart, but because I'm using Stability Matrix, they have it set to do apply and quit. Now, I will have to say one thing as a recommendation when dealing with extensions. Don't install a whole bunch of extensions at the same time. You may be going through the available and you see this massive list of extensions, so you get all excited and you start hit install. And then you come over here and select the apply and quit. So it'll supposedly apply the installs for each of those, and then quit, and then you start it back up. You may run into some issues where it'll cause it to crash, fail, whatever. It's always a good recommendation to just install one, maybe two at a time. That way, if you do run into problems, you know which one caused the problem, because if you install 4 at the same time and suddenly your interface doesn't load, you got to go through and troubleshoot that. Meaning you got to look through the logs, figure out which extension failed, if any. And the best way to troubleshoot an extension is to go to the extensions folder, delete the folder for that extension, and start it over again. So, and this one allows you to actually back up your extensions. So if you do have to reinstall or reinstall the interface, you can reinstall the extensions really quick too. Okay. So now what I'd like to do is go through and talk about customizations. One of the things I like to be able to do, so I don't have to worry about it later on, is change some of the defaults in the interface so that I don't necessarily have to do change the config preset, that when I load the interface up, it's just automatically that way. Now, the way this is done is through the ui-config.json file. I'm going to show you this real quick. I use Notepad++, as a lot of people do. And as you can see up here, you can see the directory to this. So it's under Personal Hobbies, AI Art, Stability Matrix, which is the Stability Matrix root folder, data, packages, and then it goes under the Stable Diffusion WebUI Forge. And then there's a file called ui-config.json. This file allows you to configure the defaults for a lot of different options in Stable Diffusion, or at least in the WebUI interface. Now, it is my strong recommendation that before you modify anything, make a copy of this file. It's not super hard to, or how do I put this? It doesn't break anything necessarily very easily. A lot of the times if you set a setting outside the boundaries, it'll just default to whatever it thinks it needs to be. But a couple of things that you'll want to pay attention is typically organized into the category. So you have your text to image category here, so you can see which ones are part of text to image. And then so on and so forth for the image to image or Inpainting, or if you're going to be working with like a detailer, you're looking for the abbreviations like AD underscore, that kind of thing. So just kind of look through it and maybe get familiar with it, because you'll want to change some settings. Like, let's say I don't want this to be the default sampler that comes up, because typically I'm using the Lightning model, and we usually use either this one or the Euler A, and so maybe I want this one to be the default. So we're going to copy that and go back to this, and we're going to paste this in here. And then next time I load the interface up, it's going to load that or set that to be the default. Sampling steps, maybe I don't want them to be 20, because again, I work with a Lightning model. I want this to be 8. And then we can set ranges too, so the sampling step range is set from 1 to 150. I don't necessarily need that high. I could change that. I'm going to leave it that way anyway. The upscaler, when doing the high-res fix, I want it to be this by default. So we're going to go in and switch it over to that instead of the latent. And if we get down here a little ways, you'll see that where you would set so you can set your maximum res width and height. I've got mine set to 4096 by 4096. I don't know if it actually goes that high. I set it to that, but I think it only goes to 2090, or 2048. You'll also see, and one of the things I did change because I work with SDXL models most of the time, is right here, the SDXL image, text to image width, visible, true, yes, with value. Normally this is set to 512 by 512. I set this to 1024 by 1024. You can adjust, like when you're sliding the scale, how many steps it moves up and down by. So there are a lot of settings in here. again, just make a backup and have fun, you know, adjusting that to your heart's desire. It's nice to be able to customize it the way you want. Okay, so one more thing before we dive into a couple of different workflows. I want to talk a little bit more about the styles. So again, this is a CSV. I actually provide mine, my CSV on my Google Share that I have open for people. Just go to share.xerophase.com. You can grab the styles.csv file there. I may go through and update it or check it against the normal automatic 1111 interface. I had somebody grab it and they said that it didn't work under that they had to go in and copy and paste it into the other one. So they may have changed the formatting a little bit. But I did make that available. And one of the things I wanted to point out in how this works. Now you can put a lot of things in here, whole prompts, maybe, you know, like I have this style 1860s photo, but I got some more sophisticated ones that I'm going to show you real quick. So like style, children's storybook illustration, watercolor, pencil line drawing. So let's go into this one. That one's not very sophisticated. Let's do a coloring book, my version 12. So what I've got here is a full prompt and a full negative prompt. Now this particular prompt helps me generate coloring book images, blank white outlines that I can quickly generate of whatever and print, you know, or scale, you know, upscale real quick and then print. But you'll notice something in here. So this is a general prompt that overall is designed to do that, but it allows me, I'm using this here, a feature that's built into the WebUI interface, both in automatic 1111, I believe, and in Forge. When you put the curly bracket prompt curly bracket in here, what that does is it takes whatever you have in your positive prompt and plugs it in there. So just as an example here, we're going to close that. We're going to go V12. We're going to pull that one up. We'll see if it works. It's been a while. So we're going to get rid of the existing prompt and we're just going to put in here unicorn. And the way we're going to do high res fix. I want this to be like a normal page, so we're going to do 8.5 by 11. I think everything else can stay the same. We're going to change the model back to the reality's edge. And I think leave everything else the same. Let's see what that does. So I put unicorn in there, but because I have this, it's going to plug that into that prompt and give us a nice coloring book page for a unicorn. Real simple, really easy. So it allows you to plug variables into your prompt, giving you the ability to create these really nice custom prompts that will generate they're kind of general for a specific medium style, but then it allows you to plug other things into it to change out the content or the focus of that image. So yeah, it does a pretty good job. So this CSV file, again, is in the root of the, how do I put this, the package folder. So let me pull that up. So what you're seeing here is the folder structure goes all the way up, but the root of your stability matrix folder, if you have that installed, then you go to data, packages, and then you pick the package. So this one's Stable Diffusion WebUI Forge. And in the root of that folder, you have a couple of things. You have your ui-config.json file, which is the one I showed you before, and then you have styles.csv. This is a CSV file that can be opened and manually edited. So let's get this in a way that allows us to see it a little bit better here. Hold on. Some of these, there we go. Okay. So you have your name, prompt, negative prompt. And so you can actually come in here and edit this however you want. Again, I've got quite a few in here. Some of these are a little outdated. I would need to go through. It takes a while to go through and change it. Like you can see this one right here, this fantasy miniature anime, whatever, has double parentheses around some of these. That's kind of the older style of doing it. Most of the time I'm doing a open parenthesis, whatever it is in the center, colon, and then how much I want to emphasize that particular thing. In fact, that's something I should talk about real quick because it does tie into your styles. You want to be doing this the proper way. Stable Diffusion, and more specifically the WebUI version of Stable Diffusion, allows for certain formatting to emphasize or de-emphasize your prompts or aspects of your prompt. So let's grab one of these prompts, like this prompt that we were working with before. Actually, let's do a portrait photography. Just get something a little different here. Change it up a little bit. And let's do the elderly man. Let's copy that one. So in this prompt, paste this in here, we'll get rid of this style over here. We have a couple things. Prompts, so let's just do a real crash course here in prompt engineering for Stable Diffusion. It likes having your prompts less than 75 tokens, or else it just kind of loses focus after that. I mean, you can put it as big a prompt as you want in there, but it's not going to really change things after 75 tokens, at least not significantly. So in this particular one, I've declared the medium, so portrait photography. So I'm declaring kind of the style of the image. So it's a portrait, which tells the AI really where the camera is going to be. I could say intimate portrait or wide angle portrait, and that will adjust like how close or how far away this portrait image is going to be. I've declared it as photography, so it knows what medium to do it in. Now, the main primary subject is listed here. So we have a wise elderly man reading in sunbeam. So we are emphasizing this by putting round brackets around it, a colon, and then 1.3. Now this number will tell the AI how much to emphasize it versus how much to de-emphasize it. So 1.3 will emphasize this enough that it makes that person or that subject matter the primary focus of the image. If I were to put this down to like 0.5, it actually starts to de-emphasize that and will actually focus more on the rest of the prompt. And now you can do this for various aspects. Like this is the main subject. Over here we are emphasizing the lighting. Okay. And I think that was it. That's all we really wanted to focus on this. And now that my prompt generator is designed to do this automatically, I can put whatever it is I want in there and get, it'll automatically format it the way it's supposed to. I love it. It saves me so much trouble in trying to figure out how to format a prompt. And you'll notice that it does include some camera information. A lot of these AI models, the images, especially the photographic images that they were trained on, contain metadata on whether, the type of lens, the type of camera, that kind of thing. And so it does actually help. It sometimes adds a little extra stuff on the end like that, which doesn't necessarily do anything for it. Spectacles glinting, so he's going to have glasses, that kind of thing. So if we were to actually render this out, we should get a wise elderly man, hopefully wearing spectacles. Yep. Reading in sunbeam, so he's got kind of the sunlight coming in there, and very well detailed, very well laid out. One of the things is I do also emphasize, or not emphasize, but include the composition of the image, rule of thirds. So you're getting this kind of broken up into 3 different main areas here. Definitely works well. So that's just kind of a rough, instruction on really how a prompt should be formatted. Typically, you'll state the medium, camera angle at the beginning, primary subject and subprimary subject actions, composition. Maybe a few other details around the primary subject. Then you're going to talk about maybe any secondary subjects. But then you're going to go into lighting and emotional aspect and background imagery, that kind of thing. Okay, so back to the styles sheet here. Again, I've got a ton in here. I've made this available. Grab it. It'll help you out. It'll show you some ways to word things. Words to use to get the results you want. I do this here, but I've also made this available in my prompt generator. So like if you come over here, you have access to a plethora of resources. You got your artists with sample pictures so you can see that. You also have a whole ton of drop-down menus with lots of different subject matter and effects and various other things that will help hopefully inspire you. It definitely helps me. I love being able to do that. Okay, so let's go through maybe just 1 or 2 quick workflows. A lot of you are going to be generating portraits, imagery, that kind of thing, like I just did here with this person. typically in my experience, what people are looking to do with these is to be able to upscale them. The other thing that I noticed when I first started trying to generate decent images where the person was all the way in is making sure your prompt structure is set up right and you're declaring the the medium and the type of image, whether it's portrait or wide angle, that kind of thing. It really helps get the subject matter where you want it in the image. But let's say we want to go through and upscale this image. Now, there's a couple of ways to do this. We're going to re-render this, but we're going to render it using high-res fix and refiner. So with the high-res fix, we've already selected the upscaler that we want. With the refiner, we're going to come in here and select the reality's edge. Let's come down here. I believe it was that one right there. So it's going to use the sub-functionality of the reality's edge model. We're just going to leave it at the 0.8, so 80% through, it's going to start using the refiner to add a little more detail to it. So all I'm doing is I'm saying I want to basically double the resolution of this image. So it's going to go from 1024 by, well, it's a portrait, so it's 792 by 1024. It's going to go from that to 1584 by 2048. So let me show you what this looks like. We are going to enable a detailer. I want it to fix whatever face might be there. We don't need to worry necessarily about the body. So we'll just leave it like that. So because we're working with a person, we want it to correct any issues with the face. We're going to upscale it, refine it a little bit, and get the resulting image. We're only going to do one. I've got my config scale set to 3, got the model I wanted. We're going to hit generate. So again, not a bad image. The hand got a little messed up on that, but what it does is it renders the first image. Halfway through, it switches over to what the high-res fix is going to do. It'll start chunking away through that. You'll see it kind of clarify. Then it'll hit the end, and it did it so fast that we didn't even see it. So normally you'd see a bounding box, and it would correct the face. So let's blow this up full size. So this is the upscaled version of the image. We have a lot of texture, skin texture. We have the glasses. It's interesting. You almost get that refraction on the glasses, little hairs off here, the backlighting with the sun rays coming in through the window. We get the texturing on the clothing. Now, yeah, the hands are a little weird. It didn't fix that. I don't even think the Inpaint or the high-res, excuse me, the A detailer hand would have fixed that. Did a good job on the title in the book. Sometimes books, when they come out, are really weird looking with like double spines and that kind of thing. So I would actually regenerate that just because I want to get an image with proper hands. I would not even bother trying to inpaint that. It's just easier to re-render it, get something where the hands look decent. It's so hard to get decent looking hands a lot of the times unless you got everything set right. Stable Diffusion, or was it the, was there Stable Diffusion 3? That's coming out. I got on a waiting list for it. I'm hoping to get that, the mid-sized model. So that'll be fun. So this one's definitely a lot better. Looks more natural and got upscaled properly. Oops, I keep clicking in other areas. And yeah, that looks really good. Okay, so if you want to upscale this further, you can't do it here. We're going to send this over to the image to image. Let it replace that image there here. We're going to come down here. We're going to set the denoise strength on this one to, I think 0.2 is fine. Now we're going to go down to 0.16. We're going to select the Ultimate SD Upscaler. Should already be set to what we want from before. So again, scale from image size and then your sampler or upscaler. We are going to turn on the controlnet and make sure that tile is selected. Then we're going to switch this over to the Inpainting model, which for me, I was using the Dream Shaper XL Lightning Inpainting model. Then we're going to hit generate. Let it go through. So I've already doubled the image size, and it's taking the same image and it's going to essentially double it again. So we're going to go from, basically going to go to a 4K image. It's going to refine a lot of the details, bring that out, bring the skin texture out. It'll look really good. So we're going to give that a minute here. Okay, so a couple things. I actually had to re-render that twice, and here's why. The first time because I had left the batch count on 2, so it was actually rendering double the amount of renders it needed to do. The second time I finished that one, and I realized there was some slight tiling that was there, and I didn't like that. So what I did is I came down here to the Ultimate SD upscale, and I modified 2 things. I changed the tile width to 1024. Tile height, if it's set to 0, will automatically just change the tile height to match the tile width. And the reason I did that is because I'm working with an SDXL model, and it works better at the 1024 by 1024 size. The other thing I did is I increased the mask blur from 8 pixels to 16. This helps alleviate a lot of that tiling edge, you know, when you see the edges that just don't quite match. So once I did that, I re-rendered it, regenerated it, and got this image. Now you can see it looks pretty much exactly the same as that one. Now if we go in, we have a lot more detail. Getting eyelashes in the eye, hairs on the face right here, the pores on the face. Definitely getting a lot more. We're now seeing the material, what do you call it? The texture, the material texture. So we're getting a lot more detail. This is a very high quality image. This image is, I believe, let's go back here. I want to say it's a full 8K image. Where are we here? No, 4K. So 3200 by 4096. Absolutely a printable image. Okay. Now, doing this style of upscaling does take longer because it's taking more time to render each of those squares. If I were to take the same image, and you saw the detail in that one, so as an example, I'm going to take this image right here, which was just doubled, so it's 792, oh no, so this is only 792 by 1024. We're going to send it over to extras. So in this upscaler, we're going to set it to 2. We've already selected our upscaler, same one we use in the other area doing the Ultimate SD upscale. We're not selecting any other options. We're just going to double the res. Show you what it does here. It's not bad if you're just looking to quickly upscale something. But if you want those refined details, you do not use this upscale technique. So what you're going to see in here, there we go. You're seeing a blending and streaking almost like it was pixelated. You're losing the detail, like the hairs on the ears are not there. They're blurred out. You're losing texture on a lot of things. Some of them it looks okay, but then you run into other things. And again, for a quick upscale where you're not worried about the quality necessary, this is not bad, especially if you're using the NMKD Psi 200K. It works really good. Just don't be using, let's say, I think one of the ones that was commonly used was the Arias Argan 4X and those kind of things. Don't work as well. I'm actually surprised it came out as well as it did there. That's not bad. It did a pretty good job. I think mostly because this was already a doubled image, so it was already working at the 2048 size, so 2K size. And so it wasn't having to interpolate a lot. It was already there. So not bad. So I already went through the process for upscaling the image. I've gone through the process of doing a basic inpainting. I've got some other tutorials on that. Most of the other things, I think you want to check out my other tutorials. They go into a lot more depth, like the Inpaint Anything, or a lot of the more custom and intricate details of doing inpainting. Show you how to remove something in here. There's ways of adding stuff as well. That's it for this video. I really hope this brought some useful information, helps those who are just getting started using Stable Diffusion, and gives you a direction to go and a stool to stand on in getting started. So I know it can be intimidating, and especially, you know, when it comes to all these different options. It took me a while to get used to them. Once you get used to them, though, it kind of becomes second nature. Prompting can be difficult. So sometimes, not sometimes. I know when I first started off, a lot of my time was spent just trying to figure out the prompt. And I am going to recommend that if you haven't yet, give my prompt generator a try. You can use the free edition. It allows you to generate one prompt every 45 seconds. Utilizes the same backend as the paid version. Paid version just has a lot more options, and you can generate up to 10 prompts at a time. But this one works well too. We'll just say photography of a, I don't know, what we want to photograph of a cute dog. We're going to do under Stable Diffusion. You have options for other prompt generators as well. If you don't want to use the emphasis that Stable Diffusion uses, those brackets, just select the no emphasis, or you can do Midjourney, DALL-E, or Leonardo. Hit submit. It's doing one prompt, comes out pretty quick. Just grab that, come back, throw it in here, and render it. Shut off high-res fix. Oh, we're using the Inpainting model. Which isn't bad. There you go. Works out really well. Again, like I said, the paid version gives you access to a lot of different things. I know this is near the end of the video, so I'm going to go ahead and plug this. So this is something I've been working on for, a year and a half. Originally with a seed prompt for ChatGPT, and eventually it morphed into this front-end subscription-based model that gives you access to a lot of tools and features for even generating images. So you want to come in here, look for inspiration, turn this up to 5 prompts, 10 prompts, whatever, generate some prompts, and then just generate those prompts out. It allows you to quickly generate an image as well. Hitting generate here, you have some control over the model. These are all the models I have on my system, so you have access to everything that I've got. You can adjust between base resolutions of 512, 768, 1024, and 1280. You can enable high-res fix, enable a detailer, and adjust the number of steps and config scale. A lot of the basic stuff that any basic user is going to use. If you don't want to really, if you're just looking to generate images but get good quality and have access to those common features, this is going to be a good way to go about doing it. You even have access to selecting different aspect ratios and utilizing LoRa's or custom prompts, that kind of thing. Even analyzing an existing image to generate prompts from an existing image, which is a very cool feature. Went through this just a little bit before about having access to artists' names and different like ideas and visuals that you might see in a prompt. And then the images you generate, as you generate them, get saved over here into this window here, which you can save them out individually, save the whole thing. It downloads it as a zip file, or you can delete individual ones and just kind of work with it until you get what you want and download them all. You can generate several at a time if you want, and it'll just push them out really quick. You can actually resize this window if you want to make it a little bit bigger. Oops. Fun stuff. So give it a try. The free one, you get a free 3-day trial with this one. Outside of that, it's $5 a month, and you get access to basically my system when rendering images. So it gives you a lot of functionality. You can even save all the prompts that you generate. You can export as a text file. I use that sometimes. So a lot of fun. So if you liked what you saw here and I brought something useful to you, definitely like the video, share it, and subscribe to my channel. We'll talk to you later.